Hey everyone. Okay, why am I doing red light in the morning? Very important. So, there's a whole lot of benefits of red light. Now, I live in Wisconsin. This is a northern climate. What the heck do you do in a northern climate in winter? You cover up, you stay inside. It's really cold outside. So, even if I wanted to go outside and take off my clothes, I do that. It's called cold adaptation, right? But how long can I be outside for in the winter? Not very long, especially without clothes on. So, what we're missing is sunlight in the winter, and sunlight is absolutely 100% required for all health processes. It works to provide information for ourselves at a quantum level. If you don't understand that, that's okay. It just means that our bodies, whether by God or nature, are designed to use sunlight as information. And when we miss the sunlight, we become much more at risk for cardiovascular disease, obesity, diabetes, mitochondrial dysfunction. All of these things happen because we're not cleaning up the damaged cells in our body without the stimulus from sunlight. So, a couple things. Bathing in red light during the winter is so important because we're inside behind windows. What happens when sunlight goes through a window? 50% of the red and infrared light are gone. You're missing out. That means it's mostly blue light coming in. There's no ultraviolet light that gets through the window. So it's all this blue light making your body blue light toxic. And guess what we're using to light? LEDs, CFLs, fluorescents, our devices that we have in front of our faces 24/7. All of that is blue light sucking the life from you. Literally. It's causing dysfunction in your mitochondria. It is causing a free radical cascade from melanopsin and vitamin A that's destroying the capacity of your mitochondria and your melatonin to clean up the damaged mitochondria. If you can't clean up damaged mitochondria and damaged cells, you have a problem. And melatonin is the thing that does that. And melatonin is what's destroyed with too much blue light. So we've got to soak up all this red light, especially in the morning and in the evening. Why? Because at sunrise, if we were outside naturally, we would be under the sun, which has no ultraviolet light. It does have blue light. Blue light is beneficial when it's balanced with red. Always balanced with red in nature. So we would be soaking up all this red light to prepare our body for the rest of the day. It does a couple of things. Sunlight in the morning sets our body's circadian rhythm. Circadian biology won the Nobel Prize in Medicine in 2017 because it was so important for human health. We have to understand how light affects us and how important it really is. So, one of the things that red light does is it restarts all of our hormone cascades. It helps us build the hormones, release the hormones that our body needs, and then we shut that off with ultraviolet light. The problem is most of us aren't outside long enough to soak up enough red light and then see the ultraviolet come into the sun. Ultraviolet is always in the sun, but it doesn't hit the earth until the sun reaches a certain height above the earth's surface. That angle of inclination is what determines whether ultraviolet light gets through. And it's not going to get through in the early morning anywhere. So that's actually the safest time to be in the sun. There's no ultraviolet. Your body needs some ultraviolet, but it's not ready to receive any ultraviolet till it gets this red light. You can stock up on red light in the morning, soak that all in to prepare your body to receive ultraviolet light. The more red light we soak up, the more we're protected against ultraviolet, and the better we can make use of the ultraviolet. So ultraviolet A, ultraviolet B, those things have very specific functions that our body absolutely requires, and without that light, we're going to be in big trouble. Ultraviolet does so many things to actually build hormones through our eye in our brain that we need throughout the day, like thyroid hormone, melatonin. All these things are programmed through the sunlight hitting our eye for use later in the day. Okay, so what else does red light do? Because it protects us against ultraviolet. The more red light we absorb, the more ultraviolet we can expose ourselves to. So that means for example, if I'm going to have my clothes off all day long, let's say I'm going to take my shirt off all day and I'm going to walk around for 10 hours in the sun, I'm probably going to get sunburned. However, if I get up at sunrise and I see the sunrise with all my clothes off, now you can wear a pair of cool tan swimsuits or Kaniki swimsuits. Those are tan through. It allows the light through everywhere. So you can kind of be naked without being naked. If you absorb all that red light in the morning and you do that consistently, seeing the sunrise, not an hour later, not 30 minutes later, sunrise, you're absorbing all this red light that is shown to be protective in the future for ultraviolet light. So you can make better use of it. So I would spend 10 hours in the sun, shirtless, and never get sunburned the entire summer because of absorbing all of that red light at sunrise. We did the same thing when we went to Mexico. So we went to Mexico from here in Wisconsin in December. We made sure we saw every single sunrise with the cool tan swimsuits on. Never got burned in Mexico, even though we were outside all day long, way closer to the equator than here in Wisconsin. It makes a big difference, and it really helps your body as well to get that red light. It rebuilds collagen. It reduces fine lines and wrinkles. It reduces inflammation. It can heal wounds much, much faster. There's so many benefits, which is why I've got this red light here. And I have this little booth that I kind of put the light in, so in case kids wake up, others are here, I can still use the red light every single morning. And it is sunrise, so I'm about to go outside and get the natural sun right after soaking up this red light. What the red light is not going to do is set your circadian rhythm for the day. The red light tells your body that it's still dark. You need the signal in the morning that it's sunrise to begin producing cortisol, wake yourself up, and drop your melatonin. You want your melatonin at night. Blue light destroys it. Red light does not. So now I need to go out and get the blue light, but also let the sun tell my body what time it is, because time is set by the suprachiasmatic nucleus, the SCN in the brain. That sets the time for every one of your cells. Every one of your cells and organs has a clock. That clock tells your body what time of day it is, what time of year it is, and where you're living. And that is super important for optimal health. The circadian rhythm of natural sunlight, not through a window, not through contacts, and not with glasses, tells your eye what time it is and sets the master clock in your brain, the suprachiasmatic nucleus, which then sets every other clock in your body, all those cells. Your skin is your largest organ, so your skin is also setting the clock peripherally in the skin wherever that sunlight hits. But the master time setter is in the brain and that SCN. And if you don't see the sunrise and you don't get outside, or you cover up with glasses or sunglasses or contacts, or you constantly see the sun through a window, your body gets very confused and the information you're receiving is not at all the same as natural sunlight. So I'm going to get out here. What I'm using is I sourced some of these lights myself. So we do have codes like Primal Hacker if you want to use a red light rising light, if you want to buy your own from their store online. Also Primal Hacker on Gemba Red. It's a little smaller light panel, much more portable. I've got that upstairs in the bedroom that I use to read at night and to stick behind my back sometimes when I've got some shoulder pain from lifting or from skiing. But these lights, this is the same size as the Juve, this light back here, but I had it manufactured myself. I'm just testing it out now for EMF as well as irradiance. So irradiance is the amount of photons coming off this light, and it tells you how close you can stand to the light and how many minutes you need to absorb those photons. The stronger or the more photons coming out, the higher the irradiance, the less amount of time you need to spend in front of the light, because there's a declining benefit from too much red light. You need just enough. So understanding the irradiance of your light. So I've got a meter here on the floor. See if I can grab it. So this is an irradiance meter. I'm going to turn it on, and we'll see if you can. It's going to be kind of hard to see since I've got this camera flipped around. But essentially what you do with this irradiance meter is you point it towards the light, and it's going to measure. It's really made for measuring sunlight or daylight. Let's see if I can get it to where you can see it. And as you point it towards the light, it's going to go up in units of watts per meter squared. And that's how we measure the irradiance or the photon power of red light or sunlight. And so what you want to do is if you've got a red light device and they don't tell you how long to use it from what distance, oh my God, that's a really big deal. You know why? Because if you, like for this light back here, if I sat 1 inch away from this light and I did that for 20 minutes, I'm probably going to get a negative benefit from heating my body too much and getting too many photons. I need just enough to where there's a major benefit and then no more. And the way you tell is with one of these meters, and Gemba Red does put that on their website at every distance, which is one of the reasons why I love Andrew from Gemba Red. He tells you the irradiance at, touching the panel, 1 inch away, 2 inches away, 6 inches away, and that means you know how far away to stand based on knowing that milliwatts per centimeter squared or watts per meter squared. So basically you just aim this little device and that takes in the photons and it measures the intensity of that light. And this light here, I'm going to do it real quick. So if I'm 1 inch away, it is 1,000 watts per meter squared. That's about it's about 100 milliwatts per centimeter squared. I'm going to back up about 6 inches, which is where I like to be from an EMF standpoint. So here I'm about 4 or 5 inches, and it's 600 watts per meter squared. So that's about 60 milliwatts per centimeter squared. What you're looking for is anything between about 8 milliwatts per centimeter squared all the way to 60 to 80 milliwatts per centimeter squared. Once you get to 100 and above, there's actually not the same benefit. It's not as good. So like the Juve, when I measure the Juve really closely, if I'm about 1 inch away, which is where a lot of people stand, at some of the light angles, it's 300 milliwatts per centimeter squared. I measured that with this device. I did it on camera a couple times. I've also, depending on which light you're looking at on the Juve, there's a ton. Look at all these LED lights that are on here. So there's quite a lot. This is not the Juve. I do have a Juve. It's in the other room. They gave me one for free, and I tested it and used it for a while, and then they kicked me out of their program, their affiliate program, because I said I didn't like the Bluetooth that was on their light, and they told me that they had sent me a shielded cord for the Juve light, and we tested it on camera at a retreat, an EMF-free retreat, and it wasn't shielded. So they caught that. It was on camera. I think somebody posted it on Facebook, so they booted me out of their program for doing that. And that's unfortunate because they do make a really good light, and I talk about their light, and it's on all of my websites. I have nothing bad to say about their light itself, except I was really disappointed when they added Bluetooth and that they didn't shield their cord after they told me they did. And they gave Dr. Mercola a shielded cord, and apparently not anyone else. So hopefully they fixed that since they booted me out. I can't see any of their stuff, but I do still have a Juve light. I just thought because they were making their lights really expensive and they were kind of being, not very nice, that I kind of spec'd my own light, and I'm going to continue working with a manufacturer on about 4 different types of lights at a much, much lower price point because I don't really need to make money off these things. I just want to get these out to people that need them. So yes, there's going to be a slight upcharge versus what you can do making your own light in China. And that's because, A, if I were to buy this light, let's say it costs $400 for me to buy it. Then I've got to pay $200 for shipping. Then I have to pay $100 to $200 for tariff. Thank you, Trump, for putting tariffs on red lights 2 months ago, or LED lights, I should say. And these count as that, so now I've got to pay a tariff on that. And then it arrives at my house, and I've got to ship it back to you all. And so that costs me about anywhere between $17 if you're local to $50 to ship it back. So you see there's all those costs, plus then if I'm going to run a website and marketing, there's costs built into that. So what some people do is they'll triple all those costs or double all of them so that they make a ton of money to do more marketing, plus pay themselves. And that totally makes sense. Like there's nothing wrong with that, but it makes it really challenging to afford these red lights. So my goal is at some point really soon to get the right lights so I can have them to be much more affordable for all of you, to where I'm still making enough to cover all my costs, but I'm not paying for a bunch of other staff and warehousing and all that. I'm pretty much just going to order what people want. So I have tried that once already. I got 12 of these lights right here and sent them out all over the place. and people are just getting them today, so hopefully they like them, except for the ones I delivered locally. So far, really good feedback. One thing I don't like about this particular light is that the EMF in the magnetic field is slightly high if you're about 2-3 inches away. 4 to 6 inches away, it drops off to about 0. So you really got to make sure you know that. So if you want to heal with the red light on this one, you've got to stand 6 inches away, and that's where this comes into play. I know at 6 inches I'm getting 60 milliwatts per centimeter squared. So I can stand in front of that for about 10 to 12 minutes front and 10 to 12 minutes back, and that's about as much as I need at any one time. I could do it about 3 to 4 times a day if I had specific issues I was trying to heal with my skin or my mitochondria. I would actually use it 3 to 4 times a day, but not back to back. I would have to put an hour to 2 hours in between each of those. That's a lot. It's really hard for people to do if you work. So red light has tons and tons and tons of benefits, especially in the winter for those of us that live indoor lives in a northern climate and we're somewhat divorced from the sun. So I highly recommend everyone get a red light. So the Gemba Red, yeah, you can use the Gemba Red touching your skin. The EMF on the Gemba Red, Andrew, who owns the company, he dialed the EMF way down. So when I first got the Gemba Red, it had 600 volts per meter in the electric field touching the light. That's way, 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 way too high. Okay, it should be well below 50, and it was 600. So I didn't want that touching my skin. It was the same as Leanne Vignier's Rejuvenator, which I think someone said they tested recently and she's modified it, which is good. So Andrew actually recalled every one of the Gemba Reds that were sent out in the beta test. So he had sent a bunch of them out to people. He took every one of them back. He fixed the EMF issue so it was extremely low, and now you can touch it to your body safely. And he resent the new versions out to everyone, and now the only versions he sells are low EMF. He has those tested by a third party. He also tests flicker. So these are LED lights. LED lights all flicker. And the flicker rate can be very damaging to our eyes and our body and our biology. The sun doesn't flicker. And so we need to know the flicker. So that's one thing I don't have yet. In order for me to get a flicker meter and a spectrometer, so I can check the spectrum of all these lights, it's about $2,000. So I'm working on that, but you can send these off to third-party labs to check flicker. So the Gemba Red, I know, third-party tested as a flicker of 1%. That's probably the lowest flicker of any light, any photobiomodulation red light anywhere. The Juve flicker is somewhere between 24 and 41% flicker. That's really, really, really high. I do not like that. It's really high. You can hack that. There's a couple ways to hack it by making it run off DC. It's not really intended to run off DC, but that will reduce the flicker dramatically down to about 5%. I know Mito HQ is making a light that's supposed to be really low flicker, and Mito Gen makes a light that's really low flicker as well in these big light panels. The Gemba Red is a little bit smaller. It's a foot by a foot. This is about a 3-foot light panel. And so if you're going to get a red light, you want to look at irradiance, flicker, and EMF. And so those are all the things that we're testing here and making sure they work well. We also have an article, if you Google Primal Hacker Red Light Buyer's Guide, it gives you all the rundown on all the red lights that we've tested in the past. There's a ton more red lights than when we started that article 2 years ago, but you can read that. I'm going to go outside and get some sun, see if you guys had any specific questions. Okay, so the Gemba Red touching the skin. If it's touching the skin, I think the irradiance is still only about 10 milliwatts per centimeter squared. So you would then use it for up to 30 minutes touching your skin. I would say more like 20 minutes because it's going to heat up your skin when it's touching it. And when you start heating the tissue, you don't get the same effects of photobiomodulation. So you really want to be careful of that. So I would say 20 minutes of Gemba Red touching your skin. Andrew can chime in too at some point and let us know. So thanks. Make sure you get outside. It is sunrise. I'm going to get outside right now with as few clothes on as possible, even though it's winter, and watch the sunrise. All right.